You know, I've spoken in many places at many times, but I have never received a reception like this, and I thank you very, very much for that. Before I talk about the media and the slobbering love affair that they've been carrying on with Barack Obama, there's something I noticed in one of the local papers in the area this morning, one of the advice columns that you read from time to time, that I thought I'd share with you since it has something to do with the media. This was a Dear Ann letter in today's paper. It says, "Dear Ann, I have a problem. I have two brothers. One brother is in television news and the other was put to death in the electric chair for murder. My mother died from insanity when I was 3 years old. My sisters are prostitutes and my father sells narcotics to high school students. Recently, I met a girl who was just released from a reformatory where she served time for smothering her illegitimate child to death, and I want to marry her. My problem is, if I marry this girl, should I tell her about my brother who's in television news?" That sort of sets the stage. By the way, I've been thinking for the past hour or so whether I should read this second letter, which I will tell you right now has nothing to do with what we're here for tonight, but I'm going to share. I'm going to take a chance. If this doesn't work, the speech is going to end in about 2 minutes, but I'm going to take a chance. Did you ever wonder why there are no men who write advice columns? They're all women, right? There's a reason for this. Here's the reason. This is a column. There's one guy out there. His name is Robert. This is a letter. "Dear Robert, I hope you can help me. The other day, I set off for work, leaving my husband in the house watching the TV as usual. I hadn't gone more than a mile down the road when my car engine conked out and the car shuddered to a halt. I walked back home to get my husband's help. When I got home, I couldn't believe my eyes. He was in the bedroom with a neighbor lady. He was let go from his job 6 months ago, and he says he has been feeling increasingly depressed and worthless. I love him very much, but he has become increasingly distant. I don't feel I can get through to him anymore. Can you please help me? Sincerely, Sheila." And this is why there are no... It says, "Dear Sheila, a car stalling after being driven a short distance can be caused by a variety of faults with the engine. Start by checking that there's no debris in the fuel line. If it's clear, check the Jubilee clips holding the vacuum pipes onto the inlet manifold. If none of these approaches solves the problem, it could be that the fuel pump itself is faulty, causing low delivery pressure to the carburetor flow chamber. I hope this helps." Thank you. All right. Just now let's talk about the book and about the media. Just before I came here, I found out from some of my sources in Washington that right after Barack Obama became president, I mean right after, he learned that the economy was in even worse shape than he had thought, and in order to save money, he was forced to lay off 17 journalists. Now, why does that joke work? Because, like most jokes that work, there's an air of believability to it. Okay, how much believability? Well, the Pew Research Center, which is one of those down-the-middle, nonpartisan groups, took a poll at the end of the campaign, right near the end of the campaign, and they asked registered voters a simple, easy-to-understand question. Who do you think most reporters want to win this election? 90% of Republicans said the media wants Barack Obama to win. Let's forget that. We expect that. But 62% of Democrats, and coincidentally another 62% of independents, said the exact same thing. So just about everybody gets it. Just about everybody out there understands that the media was in the tank for Barack Obama. This doesn't mean, by the way, that everybody cares that the media was in the tank for Barack Obama. the more you supported him, the more passionate you were in wanting him to be elected, the less you care about the fact that the media was corrupt this time around. And every now and then when I'm on a radio show and a liberal caller calls in, and even if he or she acknowledges the bias, expresses a lack of interest in it, doesn't care, I came up with this analogy that let's imagine we have two college football teams. You could pick any two teams, but let's say USC and Notre Dame. And for whatever reason, the referees wanted Notre Dame to win. Whatever reason. Notre Dame had higher academic standards. Notre Dame had more players who overcame physical hardships. I don't care what the reasons are. But they decided that anytime there was a close call, they were going to go in Notre Dame's favor. Nobody would tolerate that. Nobody would tolerate that. I don't even think the Notre Dame fans would tolerate that. And I use that analogy to make the point that the media, reporters and their editors, are supposed to be impartial referees. And they're supposed to tell us what's going on and let us decide. And it doesn't matter if you were rooting for Barack Obama. You can't have a media that's in the tank for one candidate. It is bad for everybody. And when I say everybody, I don't just mean it's bad for Republicans and conservatives. It's bad for Democrats and liberals as well, and I'm going to explain that in a bit. I want to make very clear before I get into this too deeply that this is not an anti-Barack Obama book. I don't blame him one bit for accepting all the slobbering and all the adulation that was aimed in his direction. I mean, most of us would take advantage of adulation if somebody heaped it on us. But it very much is an anti-mainstream media book. This time, it was different from all the other times. This time, I'm not even talking about media bias. This time, they went to a new level, from media bias to media activism, which is sort of like judicial activism, where judges know what's best for everybody and then decide to legislate from the bench. Media activism is where reporters decided that they knew what was best for everyone. And they were going to not only put a thumb on the scale, the way they always do for a liberal Democratic candidate, whether it was Dukakis or Mondale or John Kerry, this was different. This time they didn't put a thumb on the scale. This time they sat on the damn scale, and they didn't care if any of you noticed or what you thought about it. Because this time it was different. They weren't happy simply being even partisan eyewitnesses to history. This time they wanted to help shape history, because this time they were on a noble mission. In their mind, they were on a noble mission. This time there was historical importance to the election. So they threw out their impartiality, and as I say, they didn't care who knew it. Now, it's not enough to simply make accusations like this without giving specifics. So let me tell you what I wrote in the book, and then I'm going to give you some specifics. This is a line from the book. If you didn't notice the pro-Obama bias during the campaign, you were either dead or in a coma. If you were dead, there's no reason to continue reading. Assuming most of you here tonight are alive, let me give you a few examples. And you know, you really can't make this stuff up. There was the commentator on MSNBC who said that when he heard Barack Obama speak, he got a thrill running up his leg. Okay. Commentators are allowed to comment, but this isn't commentary. This is a man crush. The same commentator went on The Tonight Show and said, if you're actually in the room when Obama gives one of his speeches and you don't cry, you're not an American. Now, while we're on the subject of MSNBC, when Sarah Palin was announced as the Republican vice presidential nominee, this was on MSNBC during the day, not on one of their nighttime commentary shows, a graphic went up on the screen as she was being announced as the candidate. And it said, breaking news, how many houses will Palin add to the Republican ticket?